so last week we were reading Red Mars. It is our favorite book of the month. And it's about Mars, which is red for now. And all these guys go to Mars, and gals, it's not a gender thing. And then these two guys start fighting over a girl. And she's all like, blah, 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 blah. And then she, talks to her best friend, Nadia, who is, we're reading it from Nadia's perspective in the third part of the book. In the first chapter, we saw it from the perspective of Sir Frank. And he did some dark stuff. Man, it was really dark. And then the next chapter we read from Maya's perspective. Maya is a hot, sexy Russian lady. She's in charge of the Russian side of the people going to Mars. And, she, starts flirting with Frank because he's the leader of the Americans, but then, things go, they just kind of fizzle out. And then she starts dating John, who is the first man on Mars. So he's, a huge fucking celebrity, and Frank is, typical John, stealing the girl and getting all the TV time. They're both hunky, from what I hear. Both John and Frank are quite hunky. But yeah, John raises some insecurities. And then him and Maya start dating, and then Maya's best friend / she's they're not sisters, but they are sisters, She's yeah, that's my sister. Nadia, she's she's so plain and simple and not as attractive as me, but she's such a good friend because of that. She's so hardworking. And then we hear it from Nadia's perspective in the next chapter, and Nadia's a badass who just does everything. She's literally laying the groundwork for the first habitat on Mars, and Maya is just yapping in her ear about her boy problems. And I'm not gonna blame Maya, but I think Maya did not help. Where we left off, Nadia got her fucking hand crunched in between a boulder and a fucking jackhammer or some shit, because she's construction engineer lady, problem solver, real good with a tractor, if you know what I mean. So anyway, she gets her hand pinned between a rock and a tractor, and I think it's Maya's fault, but I'm kidding. But that's what happens. And you're all caught up. Mars. There's a lot of cool sci-fi stuff that happens too, but use your imagination. Ah. Thank you, JB McCool. Oh! And I almost forgot. John and Maya broke up. Forget all of that sci-fi stuff. John and Maya dumped each other. Or John dumped Maya. It's fucking insane. Yeah, he was listen, everybody loves more than one person, but you can only be loyal to me. And I think that you and Frank are being fucking weird. So he dumped Maya. Okay. The next day, she was out working. I'll just read the last few paragraphs before we stopped. She was working late on a trencher. It was the third job of the day, and the second had been trouble. So they had it's the last job of the day. Then as soon as Nadia had been called over to help with a Sandvik Tubex boring machine, which they were using to drill cased holes through large boulders they ran into while laying a water line from the alchemists, like where they like okay, wait, I was gonna do a way better summary than that. That was like my shitpost summary. Because it's so hard to do a summary every week. Like it's like this much of the book now. I guess the most important thing is that they flew to Mars. They landed on Mars. There's this weird guy. He's on Phobos. He's building a space station. He's everybody's favorite. But we don't. Anyways, he's king of Phobos, Arcady. And then everybody else is on Mars trying to build the first like livable situation. So they've got like a nuclear power plant. They've got they just built the first like livable habitat. Before they were living in like a trailer park that was purposed into like homes, but they're basically like living in radiation protected. Maybe not even radiation protected. They were just living in like shipping containers in what they affectionately dubbed the trailer park. And then there's a power plant. There's the alchemists, who are the like chemists and chemical engineering. They're building all the synthetic stuff that they're gonna have to build more stuff with. Turning the materials that have already been harvested into, stuff. And then there's like the geologist station, and there's the farm. And they've got like, the farm people are working on getting a farm for food and resources. And then there's, they just built the first habitat. It's underground to protect the most from radiation and the elements. Nadia helped build it. It's basically her baby. And now they moved out of the trailer park and they live in a hole in the ground made out of concrete and bamboo. Because bamboo is one of the first crops that they could grow, and it's really good for construction purposes. And it grows really fast. So we say thank you to the farm. As soon as that was finished, Nadia had been called over to help with a Sandvik Tubex boring machine, which they were using to drill cased holes through large boulders they ran into while laying a water line from the alchemists to the permanent habitat. The down-the-hole pneumatic hammer had apparently frozen at full extension, as stuck as an arrow fired most of the way through a tree. Nadia stood looking down at the hammer shaft. "Do you have any suggestions for freeing the hammer without breaking it?" Spencer asked. "Break the boulder," Nadia said wearily, and walked over and got in a tractor with a backhoe already attached. She drove it over and dug down to the top of the boulder, and then got out to attach a little Allied hydraulic impact hammer to the backhoe. "Help me, step hammer, I'm stuck." And then got out to attach a little Allied hydraulic impact hammer to the backhoe. She had just set it in position on the top of the boulder when the down-the-hole hammer suddenly jerked its drill back, pulling the boulder with it and catching the outside of her left hand against the underside of the Allied high ram. Instinctively, she pulled back, and pain lanced up her arm and into her chest. Fire filled that side of her body, and her vision went white. There were shouts in her ears. "What's wrong? What happened?" She must have screamed, "Help." She grated. She was sitting, her crushed hand still pinned between rock and hammer. Oh, she must have screamed. "Help," she grated. She was sitting, her crushed hand still pinned between rock and hammer. She pushed at the front wheel of the tractor with her foot, shoved with all her might, and felt the hammer rasp her bones over rock. Then she flopped on her back, the hand free. The pain was blinding. She felt sick to her stomach and thought she might faint. Pushing onto her knees with her good hand, she saw that the crushed hand was bleeding heavily. The glove ripped apart, the little finger apparently gone. She groaned and hunched over it, pressed it to her, and then jammed it against the ground, ignoring the flash of pain. Even bleeding as it was, the hand would freeze in how long? "Freeze, damn you, freeze," she cried. She shook tears out of her eyes and forced herself to look at it. Blood all over, steaming. She pushed the hand into the ground as hard as she could stand. Already it hurt less. Soon it would be numb. She would have to be careful not to freeze the whole hand. Frightened, she prepared to pull it back into her lap. Then people were there, lifting her, and she fainted. So yeah, she at least lost a finger and had her hand crushed. Yeah, Nadia is tough as shit. Maybe it will grow back. I hope they brought aloe for the farm. Nadia Baggins now. Oh god. After that, she was maimed. Nadia Nine Fingers. Arcady called her over the phone. Thanks, Arcady. Nadia Nine Fingers, Arcady called her over the phone. He sent her lines by Yevtushenko, written to mourn the death of Louis Armstrong. "Do as you did in the past, and play." "How did you find that?" Nadia asked him. "I can't imagine you reading Yevtushenko." "Of course I read him. It's better than McGonagall." "No, this was in a book on Armstrong. I've taken your advice and I've been listening to him while we work, and lately reading some books on him at night." "I wish you'd come down here," Nadia said. Vlad had done the surgery. He told her it would be all right. "It caught you clean. The ring finger is a bit impaired, and will act like the little finger used to, probably. But ring fingers never do much anyway. The two main fingers will be as strong as ever." Everyone came by to visit. Nevertheless, she spoke more with Arcady than anyone else. In the hours of the night when she was alone, in the 4.5 hours between Phobos's rising in the west and its setting in the east, he called in almost every night. He called in every night at first, and often thereafter. Pretty soon she was up and around. hand in a cast that was suspiciously slender. She went out to troubleshoot or consult, hoping to keep her mind occupied. Michelle Duval never came by at all, which she thought was strange. Wasn't this what psychologists were for? She couldn't help feeling depressed. She needed her hands for her work. She was a hand laborer. The cast got in the way, and she cut off the part around her wrist. The part around the wrist, with shears from her toolkit. But she had to keep both hand and cast in a box when outside, and there wasn't much she could do. It really was depressing. Thank you, The Sacred Entry, for 35 months. Thank you, Adam. Hello, everybody. Just doing our book club. It really was depressing. Saturday night arrived, and she sat in the newly filled whirlpool bath. Oh, fuck yeah, they got the whirlpool. Everyone's gonna be way happier. She sat in the newly filled whirlpool bath, nursing a glass of bad wine and looking around at her companions, splashing and soaking in their bathing suits. She wasn't the only one to have been injured, by any means. They were all a bit battered now. After so many months of physical work, almost everyone had frostburn marks, patches of black skin that eventually peeled, leaving pink new skin, garish and ugly in the heat of the pools. And several others wore casts on hands, wrists, arms, even legs, all for breaks or sprains. Actually, they were lucky no one had gotten killed yet. All these bodies, and none for her. They knew each other like family, she thought. They were each other's physicians. They slept in the same rooms, dressed in the same locks, bathed together. An unremarkable group of human animals, eye-catching in the inner world they occupied, but more comforting than exciting, at least most of the time. Middle-aged bodies. Nadia herself was round as a pumpkin, a plump, tough, muscular, short woman, squarish and yet rounded, and single. Her closest friend these days was only a voice in her ear, a face on the screen. He had had a lot of girlfriends on the Aries, and Janet Bly-Levin had gone to Phobos to be with him. People were arguing again, there in the shallows of the lap pool. Anne, tall and angular, leaning down to snap something at Sax Russell, short and soft. As usual, he didn't appear to be listening. She would hit him one day if he didn't watch out. It was strange how the group was changing again, how the feel of it was changing. She could never get a fix on it. The real nature of the group was a thing apart, with a life of its own, somehow distinct from the characters of the individuals that constituted it. It must make Michelle's job as their shrink almost impossible. Not that one could tell with Michel. He was the quietest and most unobtrusive psychiatrist she had ever met. No doubt an asset in this crowd of shrink atheists. but she still thought it was odd he hadn't come by to see her after the accident. One evening, she left the dining chambers and walked down to the tunnel they were digging from the vaulted chambers to the farm complex. And there at the tunnel's end were Maya and Frank, arguing in a vicious undertone that carried down the tunnel, not their meaning, but their feeling. Frank's face was contorted with anger, and Maya, as she turned from him, was distraught, weeping. She turned back to shout at him, "It was never like that!" And then ran blindly toward Nadia, her mouth twisted into a snarl, Frank's face a mask of pain. Maya saw Nadia standing there and ran right by her. Shocked, Nadia turned and walked back to the living chambers. She went up the magnesium stairs to the living room in Chamber 2 and turned on the TV to watch a 24-hour news program from Earth. A 24-hour news program from Earth. Something she very rarely did. After a while, she turned down the sound and looked at the pattern of bricks in the barrel vault overhead. Maya came in and started to explain things to her. There was nothing between her and Frank. It was in Frank's mind only. He just wouldn't give up on it, even though it had been nothing to begin with. She wanted only John. And it wasn't her fault that John and Frank were on such bad terms now. It was because of Frank's irrational desire. It wasn't her fault. But she felt so guilty because the two men had once been such close friends, like brothers. And Nadia listened, with a careful show of patience, saying, "Da, and "I see," and the like, until Maya was lying flat on her back on the floor, crying. And Nadia was sitting on the edge of a chair, staring at her, wondering how much of it was true. And what the argument had really been about. And whether she was a bad friend to distrust her friend, to distrust her old companion's story so completely. But somehow, the whole thing felt like Maya covering her tracks, practicing another manipulation. It was just this. Those two distraught faces that she had seen down the tunnel had been the clearest evidence possible of a fight between intimates. So Maya's explanation was almost certainly a lie. Nadia said something soothing to her and went off to bed, thinking, "You already have taken too much of my time and energy and concentration with these games. You cost me a finger with them, bitch." Wow, okay. I don't remember if I read this far yet. But I think we're literally, if I haven't read this page, I think I haven't read any further than this. Like, literally this page. Where there's, like, a little break here. So I was right, even though I might have read this a few months ago. Yeah, it's totally Maya's fault that Nadia lost her finger. Which, I don't know. We just have narrators. We don't have facts. So Maya's explanation was almost certainly a lie. Nadia said something soothing to her and went off to bed thinking, "You already have taken too much of my time and energy and concentration with these games. You cost me a finger with them, you bitch." It was getting toward the end of the long northern spring, and they still had no good supply of water. So Anne proposed to make an expedition to the Cap and set up a robot distillery. Along the way, establishing a route that rovers could follow on automatic pilot. "Come with us," she said to Nadia. "You haven't seen anything of the planet yet, just the stretch between here and Chernobyl. And that's nothing. You missed Hebes and Ganges, and you're not doing anything new here. Really, Nadia, I can't believe what a grub you've been. I mean, why did you come to Mars, after all?" Why? Yes, why? I mean, there's two kinds of activities here. There's the exploration of Mars, and then there's life support for that exploration. And here you've been, completely immersed in the life support, without paying the slightest attention to the reason we came here in the first place. "Well, it's what I like to do," Nadia said uneasily. "Fine, but try to keep some perspective on it. What the hell? You could have stayed back on Earth and been a plumber. You didn't have to come all this way to drive a goddamn bulldozer. Just how long are you going to be grubbing away here, installing toilets, programming tractors?" All right, Nadia said, thinking of Maya and all the rest. The square of the vaults was almost finished anyway. I could use a vacation. Okay, I have read this far. I remember them journeying a little bit. Yeah, Anne's a goddamn savage. Everyone's so mean to Nadia. Yeah, didn't have no Mercedes tractor on Earth. I had to work in she had to work in fucking Siberia. I had to work in Siberia without a fucking Mercedes. I love Mars. Don't question that. Cheerio. They took off in 3 big long-range rovers. Nadia and 5 of the geologists. Anne, Simon Fraser, George Berkovic, Phyllis Boyle, and Edvard Perrin. George and Edvard were friends of Phyllis's from their NASA days. And they supported her in advocating applied geological studies, meaning prospecting for rare metals. Simon, on the other hand, was a quiet ally of Anne's, committed to pure research and a hands-off attitude. That's okay. So aside from the drama, that is one of the big background things that's like happening. Is there's a lot of argument about how to handle the terraforming or the attempted colonization of Mars. Like, there's some people who are like, don't touch anything that you don't absolutely need to, and then they argue about what they need to touch. And then there's other people who are like, let's bulldoze this whole fucking, like, half of this planet and build whatever the fuck we want on it because we need to. So yeah, the whole, I guess that's a good way to summarize it. It's all, a lot of people are arguing about what they need to do on Mars. Like, do we need to build a Terra dome? You know, or do we need to, like, try to not disturb anything? There's talk. That's the difference of terraforming or building a habitat. I mean, obviously they're way off from terraforming, but But yeah, even anything they want to build is like an argument, because there are some people who don't want to disturb the natural. They feel like you can learn more from the natural setting than from just blowing it up and building a city. So that'll be interesting as they blow it up and build a city. Because they're gonna have to, of course, but, you know, there's a rational argument playing out in the background. And what else was I gonna say? Yeah, obviously both is gonna happen. Hopefully, dude, we could treat it like Earth 2.0 and just fill up every last square inch of it with fucking concrete. But hopefully that won't happen, you know? There's a rationale to both sides. You know, don't judge. Got really cold in here, just like Mars. Yeah, but so I believe this whole trilogy, because there's 3 books. We'll probably I hope we read them all, but I'm at least reading the first book on stream. And I've heard that the whole trilogy goes over 200 years.